Hey, good afternoon, everybody. 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. I am Brian Wilson. I am your friend and radio buddy, and so glad to be with you here on Wednesday. It's the middle of the week, just a little past the middle of the month. Well, here we go. We got a lot to cover here today. Want to remind you that we'll have our regular conversation with Pete Hegseth coming up at 4:35. But in the meantime, I want to start with these indictments, these latest indictments that have come down from Trump. I think this is pretty weak stuff. The more you dig into it and the more you read from people who are real legal experts. I mean, a lot of people have opinions about stuff. One of the things, you read, for example, is, the special counsel on Biden. You hear that, you go, well, you can't be a special counsel and still be an a U.S. attorney for Delaware. It's supposed to be from outside of government, so that's illegal. Yeah, I read that. But then I don't hear the people who are in a position to raise unmitigated hell about it taking up that line. So we'll see what that happens there. But I do believe this is right when it comes to the Trump indictments. It's really focused on things like his tweets, his calls, and the conversations that he had, which are all things that are tied up with speech. It's about speech, which is supposed to be protected. In fact, if you know anything at all about Supreme Court decisions about speech, they have gone out of their way to say that political speech is about the most important kind of speech that can be protected. And if you are using your words to ask questions or to challenge or to poke or to prod or to try to get information, I don't know where that's a crime. How is that a RICO crime? I don't think so. I think a lot of what they have put together out of these Georgia indictments is all aimed at Trump for having used his words. That's not a crime. That's not only not a crime, it's absolutely protected by the First Amendment. Here's something on that from the Washington Times. Georgia's sprawling criminal indictment of former President Donald Trump takes direct aim at his tweets and his phone calls in his bid to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in the state. Trump lost by 11,779 votes. And he says election irregularities were responsible for Joe Biden's victory in the state. Mr. Trump made the case to Georgia official on social media, and the claim could land him in prison for more than 2 decades. But these indictments cross the Rubicon of American politics as we now indict the leading opponent of the administration and former president for acting on the oldest tradition in America, contesting elections. Criminal defense lawyer Robert Barnes told the Washington Times. He's among those who say Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis, a prosecution of Trump attempts to criminalize free speech and the right to question and protest election results. Well, how can that be? If the whole case is really focused on the things that Donald Trump said, and you have First Amendment protections for political speech, how can this thing hold up? I don't know that it will. A lot of people are saying, look at all the things that are out there pending, all the things that have been thrown against Donald Trump. It adds up. It adds up. Well, you know what? We're not close to anything going to trial yet. You haven't even begun to go through the process of pretrial motions, which will winnow and thin, a lot of the stuff that has been alleged. I really do believe that in each of these cases, the prosecutors have overextended their authority, and they're just. If you're going after somebody as a prosecutor, you throw everything out there. You throw everything that you think might have a chance. But not everything is going to stand up, and judges are going to say in these pretrial motions and all of the filings, they will start to say things like, that's not really, we're going to have to do away with that. That won't stand up in a court of law. So let's just go ahead and get rid of that. I mean, there'll be all kinds of challenges to these indictments. And so, they say, well, a lot of things pending, a lot of things being thrown at him. Well, what will be there when we actually get to trial? Now, we're told the Georgia case might be the first case to actually go to trial. And now we know that that's going to be March 4th of 2024. You know what that is? If you had any doubt about whether or not this is political, you need to understand that is one day, one stinking day before, Super Tuesday. That's that tells you everything you need to know about what's motivating this. Is it that, they feel like there's been some heinous crime committed against the people of America? Or are they just doing everything that they can to stop Donald Trump politically? I don't know that they will actually get started on March 4th of 2024, but at least that's the way it looks today. So, look, this is going to be going on during the height of the primary season. You have to understand that that this is being brought by, in the state of Georgia by Democrats, elsewhere by the basically elements of the Biden administration, bringing charges against a man who will be the likely opponent of the man who now occupies 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So this is not political. Of course it's political. There's and let me give you an example of why this is such unmitigated, what. I want you to listen to this. This is Stacey Abrams, 2018. She did nothing but whine and complain and poke and prod and agitate because she believes that the election was stolen from her when she ran for governor.
I do have one very affirmative statement to make.
We won, but I didn't lose. I got the votes, but we won't know exactly how many because of how they cheated.
I did win my election. I just didn't get to have the job.
We were robbed of an election.
Using the word rigged, using the word steal, do you think it's dangerous going into 2020?
I don't, because we can actually back it up.
And so in response to what I believe was a stolen election, and I'm not saying they stole it from me, they stole it from the voters of Georgia.
In fact, I went outside asking if I'm ever going to concede. The answer is no.
This is not a speech of concession, because concession needs to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. And I will not concede because the erosion of our democracy is not right.
People like this man, they're going to steal your election.
It was not a free and fair election. I think the election was stolen from the people of Georgia.
I believe it was stolen from the voters. Thousands of Georgians had their voices stolen because they were not able to cast ballots. And they cannot be guaranteed that their votes will be counted in 2020 if we don't do this right.
If what happens to you happens nationally, and we see whoever wins the Democratic nominee, if they say, actually, I can prove that there's a number of votes in every state and that the same thing that you just described happens in multiple states, should they concede?
I do not think we should concede an election until we know the results of an election.
I still fundamentally believed it could be fair. And that's just not how life works. If it looks like it's cheating, it probably is. If it looks like it's rigged, it probably is.
We've been raised to believe that it is invalid, in fact, it is uncouth to call the question. That if you want to run for office again, you got to concede the election so that everyone knows you're a good sport.
And so this just goes on and on and on and on. And she made all kinds of allegations suggesting that the election had been unfair in every way. And where are the charges against Stacey Abrams? Where are the charges against Hillary Clinton, who went everywhere and with anybody who would listen? Do you think they didn't make a few phone calls on election night? Of course they did. Of course they did. They wanted to know what was going on. It's well within the right of the candidate to try to find out what's going on election night and to follow up on those days when you're trying to still count the ballots. Nothing wrong with that. if you're running for a county commissioner, if you're running for a mayor, if you're running for, dog catcher, there's nothing wrong with picking up the phone and saying, hey, we're hearing all of these reports. What can you tell us? Is there something to this? Are you looking into it? What can you tell us? Listen, he did not step over his boundaries, it seems to me, in those phone calls. If what we know is out there, but we'll see. But I don't understand how in the world you build a case against a man who has done nothing more than Stacey Abrams has done, than Hillary Clinton has done. If you don't like the outcome, it seems if you're, it's not strictly a Republican thing. It's not a Donald Trump thing. There are many people who have run for political office who felt like, well, it didn't fall my way, and I have some questions. But it's only Donald Trump who gets, brought to the woodshed, who has the unbelievable RICO statutes broken out as if he's some kind of gangster, some kind of thug, some part of, the mafia. RICO. That's just unbelievable. Well, anyway, the story goes on to say that it's really, really, really hard. Mr. Trump's claims of election fraud are central to Miss Willis's case, says this article in the Washington Times. The indictment cites as evidence many of Mr. Trump's phone calls to election officials in Georgia and his numerous tweets that criticize Georgia lawmakers and election officials, in which he alleged fraudulent election activity, such as ballot stuffing and voting counted from the dead. I don't see how it's legally possible to charge President Trump and his advisors from objecting to a presidential election, said Mike Davis, a former counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee and president of the Article 3 project, which advocates for constitutionalist judges and the rule of law. Mr. Davis and other legal experts who criticized the Georgia indictments said Mr. Trump's actions are shielded from criminal prosecution, partly because he was serving as president at the time. That is core political speech, either protected by immunity in his official capacity or the First Amendment in his personal capacity. There's no there. Will the judges look at these things and look at them, and throw some of these ridiculous allegations out before we get to trial? Do these cases evaporate over time? Look, lawyers are involved, and the only thing that I know from practical experience is when lawyers start to get involved, things slow down. Nothing happens quickly when lawyers get involved. So, they say March 2024. I tell you that what that tells me is this is incredibly, incredibly political. But it also tells me that, this may not hold up. It may be revealed to be just what we said, a political prosecution or persecution of Donald Trump. Right now, 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Hey, if you have a desire to add gold or silver to your portfolio, listen up. I'm Brian Wilson, and I want to tell you about Nashville Gold and Coin. And if you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion, let me tell you, this is the place I do my business, and it's a place I recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education. They will also specialize in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins. I mean, do you have any idea how much those old coins you have laying around might be worth? I brought in a few silver coins. I had a shoebox. It was in my sock drawer. Turned out to be worth more than $1,600. Whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals or you just want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Start by going to their website, NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
A 2-year-old child has been shot this afternoon in Tennessee. We're learning more updates now that police have spoke to the press. We'll provide those here at 3:30. Plus, some legislation in Tennessee. That as well, all coming up 30 minutes after the hour, 3 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Very quickly, just a couple of more things about Donald Trump and these indictments. There was a premature posting of the charges against Donald Trump in the Georgia case on the clerk's website, and that's raising all kinds of questions and may actually, give the defense a line of attack against the people who bring in the charges there in the state of Georgia. I mean, it was really strange, and it says, how long has this thing been in the works, and how long has it been out there, and why did it get posted early, and how did that happen? Because the proceedings of the grand jury are not supposed to be, floating about until after the grand jury vote has been taken. Was this a real document? Was this just a test document? I mean, what we hear from the clerk's office is somebody hit save instead of send. Or they thought they were hitting save and they hit send, and so it got posted momentarily. And by the way, most of what got posted, as far as I can tell, was in the original document. So people are raising questions about that. And there is the possibility that this trial, at least the one in Georgia, would be on television. That could happen. I think we'll watch it and see what happens. But, I mean, it could be. I mean, state trials often are on camera. It's federal trials that are rarely on camera. And so we'll watch to see how that goes. That could be interesting watching and a platform for Trump to, make his case. Come out every day, walk out front, have some things to say to the media. The world would be watching. There's no doubt about that. Okay. Then, I've been talking about Hunter Biden just quickly while we got a moment or two. The special counsel appointment is blatantly illegal. Now, we've been talking about this. Some people have kept, they keep saying, Wilson, it's very clear when you read the law. And I'm going to tell you, the way I read the law, I agree with you. But what I'm mystified by is if this special counsel appointment is blatantly illegal, why aren't there people who are in a position to point this out and to raise unmitigated hell about it and to challenge it in a court of law? Where are they? Because I don't see them. I don't see them talking. I don't see like them looking at this as an opportunity to sort of derail the whole thing. But according to Alan Dershowitz, it's blatantly illegal. The requirement of the law, the regulations were authorized by Congress under 5 U.S.C. 301, 509, 510, 515 through 19. The Attorney General is the chief law enforcement in the United States, and it is certainly it'd be expected that he would then follow the law. But somehow people are trying to figure out how there has been an applicable exception to this requirement in the special counsel law by, the nation's top lawyer. How did he do that? Did he not look at the law? Did he not? I mean, I don't know. And where are the people who have the ability to challenge this and run it up the flagpole, file a lawsuit? None of that has happened. So I don't know. But it does seem to me that, again, something is not quite right about what this has been set up as a special counsel. I've looked at it 9 ways to Sunday. It just seems to me that everything they're doing for Biden right now is a play for time. Let's push this off beyond the election cycle. Special counsels are notoriously slow about getting their job done, and there's nobody really who can push them around. Say, hey, come on, where's your dang work product? What are you doing? I mean, you have this, that, and the other. Do you not? What else are you looking for? You can't ask those questions. Special counsels are islands unto themselves. Little islands of independence within the system. At least that's the way it goes. Look, I'm not sure whether this special counsel appointment can stand up. If there's going to be somebody who challenges it, I want to know who that is. They haven't yet, come forward, but we'll see. In the meantime, it's, again, another example how, everything looks, like we push things off, we do things. We're looking, to give Hunter Biden a break at every chance, give Joe Biden a break at every chance. But on the other side of the equation, we have a lawsuit that's going to be opening up just as we're one day away from the Super Tuesday for Donald Trump. I mean, does that seem fair? Does that seem right? No, it doesn't. Again, so many questions, such a dual standard, and it angers people. It angers people, and I think people are paying attention. 3:30 now on Super Talk 99.7.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 81 degrees in Music City. Got a traffic and weather forecast coming up in just a few minutes. A 2-year-old child was shot and is now being treated at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. The shooting happened this afternoon in the 3200 block of Mayor Lane. That crime scene is still active. No threat to the public. The father was there at the house with his daughter alone when this happened. Police provided an update to Channel 4.
Right now, she's critical but alert. So we're praying that she pulls through and make a full recovery.
He said they have a chaplain at the hospital with the family currently, and they have not yet determined if that gun was registered. The father is cooperating with police in this investigation, and the officer made it clear how imperative proper training is when using firearms. Right now, no charges are pending. Legislation in Tennessee, a bill was passed yesterday that limits the number of party buses downtown. The bill will put that power in the hands of the Metro Transportation Licensing Commission to decide how many are going to be allowed. The vehicle operators have 100 days from the date of the non-renewal of their permits. And to go along with that, speakers on Broadway near the open doors must now be facing inwards to reduce excessive noise to residents on the streets. North Korea says it is an American soldier who fled to that dictator state. Here's Andy Field.
U.S. Army Private Travis King was on his way back to the U.S. to face military discipline charges when he crossed into the North Korean demilitarized zone. North Korea now says he did that because of what King claims was the U.S. Army's racism.
We cannot verify the comments attributed.
David King back.
And that is the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing so you'll know how much things will cost before the care is delivered. Smart Care Plan, $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, you take that and marry it with a high deductible insurance plan that you may have. This could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. And at Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Just call this number, 599-6868, to schedule a visit. You know, I don't understand, what the Biden administration is up to. They are out there traveling the country, the president of the United States traveling the country to speak in glowing terms about something that most Americans look at as his greatest failure, the way he manages the economy. But, he's out there talking about Bidenomics as if it's a good thing. I think most people hear Bidenomics, they think, wow, it's not working for me. I'm not any better off than I was. I mean, that's really the question when you ask if the economy, if it's so important as James Carville once said, it's the economy stupid. If that's so important in presidential politics, then, you would want to go out there and be very careful about the things that you would say. Because, most people, they look at the economic policies of the Biden administration, and there are very few people who say, wow, it's really working great for me, Joe, thanks. It's really not working well for most anyone. But they still go out there and they do it, and it's almost laughable how crazy these things are. I mean, this is the White House. This is the leader of the free world. They go out and they do a little event somewhere, some town, where they want to talk about the economy. And it starts off, I'm not making it up, it starts off with this. Ready? This is hilarious.
President Joe Biden, y'all. President Joe Biden, y'all.
There you go.
Uh-oh.
He didn't come out.
Well, I'm a little underwhelmed, aren't you all? I think I messed up. Y'all, please vote for me, okay?
Well, you might as well get something out of it before you leave the stage with your, your tail tucked between your legs. I mean, how in the world does it happen that you're introducing the president of the United States and he's not there?
Where am I? What's going to happen to me?
Yeah, I have no idea where you were, but I don't know, were you taking a bathroom break? What was going on? I got no idea where you were. And then he says stuff that doesn't make any sense at all. Here he is talking about how he has reduced the debt, and these numbers are wildly off.
And unlike the last president, in my first 2 years in office, even with all we've done, I'm the first one to cut the federal debt by $1.7 trillion. $1.7 trillion cut.
Nobody in the world who knows how these things are actually added and subtracted and have done the heavy math on this believes that's an accurate number. It's simply not. And then this brings me to, Lunch Bucket Joe, once again, bringing out this old chestnut. How many times has he told this story that everyone in America has been told is simply not true? It takes up, and this is one of his best tellings of it. But it's completely made up in his mind. I don't know where he gets it. It's not physically possible that this actually happened, and I'll explain why in a moment. It's the very famous Joe Biden railroad conductor story.
My wife called me one day and says, "Did you read the paper today?" And I was up campaigning for a guy named Pat Leahy in Vermont. I said, "No, honey, I didn't see the Wilmington paper." He said, "Headline, above the fold." Only a politician's wife would say that. "Biden, poorest man in Congress. Is that true?" Like I was cheating on her or something. But I was. And I couldn't afford a house in Washington, and I couldn't afford a house in Delaware. If I sold my house in Delaware, I'd lose the election. So I started a commute. It's only 300 miles a day, but it still takes me an average of 4 hours beginning to end. And so what happened was when you travel as vice president on Air Force planes, they keep a precise number of miles you travel. And I guess it was in my 7th year or 6th year as vice president, there was a headline in the New York paper saying Biden travels almost 1,200,000 miles on Air Force planes, 1,200,000 or whatever.
Well, whatever. The numbers are not important.
The Secret Service are the best in the world. They don't like me traveling on the train because there are too many opportunities for people to do bad things on trains. And so I'm getting on a train to go home and see my mom, who was sick and in hospice at my home. And this guy, I won't mention his name because I will get him in trouble, but one of the senior guys.
Well, you're not going to get him in trouble because he's dead. And I mean, I don't know who he's trying to protect, but the guy has been dead. And I'll tell you why the timing of his death makes this story impossible.
And so I'm getting on a train to go home and see my mom, who was sick and in hospice at my home. And this guy, I won't mention his name because I will get him in trouble, but one of the senior guys in Amtrak who I rode with all the time comes up and goes, "Joey, baby," grabs my cheek.
He always does that.
Swear to God, I thought they were going to shoot him. And I said, no. I said, "What's the matter, Angie?" He said, I read this thing about over 1 million miles on Air Force planes. He said, "Hell, you know how many miles you travel on Amtrak?" I said, "No, Angie, I don't know." He said, "We just had a retirement dinner up in Newark." He said, "You travel average 117 days a year, round trip, 300 miles a day. 36 years, that's 1,285,000 miles. I don't want to hear any more about the Air Force." True story. I swear to God.
No, it's that he says that it's a true story. It's not a true story. It's not even close to being a true story. It is absolutely impossible for this to have happened.
True story. I swear to God.
You know why? because the person who apparently approached Joe Biden had been dead 1 full year before the Air Force said that Joe Biden, as vice president, had traveled 1 million miles on Air Force Two. It cannot happen. He tells this story over and over and over and over. You would assume that somebody has gone to him and said, Mr. President, can we ixnay on the, the OEJ, Joey baby stuff? I'm sorry, I tried to do Pig Latin and I can't. But can we do that? Can we just stop that? Because it's, there are people who have done the math on it, and it doesn't add up, and the story is not accurate. And he still goes out and tells the story. It's as if it's one of two things has happened. Either nobody has had the temerity to approach the president and tell him, he should stop telling this story, or he's been told not to tell the story and he just forgets about it. Neither one of these things is particularly good. But one way or the other, it is not.
True story. I swear to God.
Simply not a true story.
Give me a break.
I'm telling you this. And then, if that weren't bad enough, once again, this is the way things now end. When you are the president of the United States and, your son is under investigation, people think that you're a crook, that and you don't want to take any questions. This is how you end the event. Now, in this particular case, he ended the event by once again looking up like a little lost puppy, trying to decide, where do I go? How do I get off this stage? I mean, there's only two sides to the stage. It's either one side or the other. And by the way, I know that the Secret Service has briefed him on this. I know that his handler, it's a term used loosely in D.C., his butt boy has told him where to go. Well, he's got somebody that's always on his tail that is supposed to be his personal handler. And in Washington, those people are lovingly referred to as the president's butt boy.
I think I would have chosen a different name, but okay.
Well, that's what the media call him. I mean, we're a derisive bunch. But either his butt boy or the Secret Service has told him, you're going to come on here, you're going to give your speech, stay in the teleprompter, Mr. President. Do not, tarry into other areas. Don't tell the Biden conductor story. I don't know, whatever they tell him. And then you exit over here. But now, because they don't want to make sure that nobody tries to ask him a question. Man, I remember this technique. This is how all Biden things end now.
May God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you.
See, the idea here is that you cannot shout over the Marine band. And Clinton used to do this all the time during the Monica Lewinsky thing. And, everybody, you'd be in there and you want to ask a question. You don't get many cracks at the president. You want to ask him a question about this, that, or the other. One of the questions is going to be about his son, Hunter Biden. How do you avoid that? By immediately, the second you say goodbye, going. Nothing kills a good question like Sousa. I actually love the Marine Band, and I love Sousa marches. It's great fun. My favorite, even though there actually is a march called the Washington Post March, which I really like. It's one of my favorites.
That's the only one I ever really think of, I guess.
What, this one?
Is that one, yeah.
Yeah. Now you see if you can find a copy of the Washington Post March.
All right.
And it was done many, of course, Sousa's, he's ancient history now. But I'm telling you, for me, when you talk about Sousa marches, it's it really one of the best marches is the Washington Post March. You got it there? A little bit of it?
Oh, yeah. I've heard this one.
It starts with a big Sousa flourish at the beginning. Yeah, this is one of my favorites.
That is a
I
good
always
one.
one of the things that I always wanted to do was I wanted to direct the Marine Band one time. Just, before I go out the door, please, could I just one time direct the Marine Band?
Do you get the little stick?
Yeah,
Or you just use your
baton.
hands?
Yeah. I would have liked, because I know, we're all, I'm drilled in on Sousa marches. But my larger point here is that this is the kind of protection they have around the guy right now. They don't want him being asked questions. They don't want him called off center. So every time he gives a speech nowadays, you're gonna hear the music, and it's really more than being patriotic. It's a lot more than that. It's about protecting somebody from being asked a question. And you may not like reporters, but that's their job, is to ask questions. Sometimes, occasionally they'll ask a question that you like. Sometimes they'll ask a question you think, well, those people are brain dead. But questions need to be asked, and a president who's not accessible is, I think, not a good thing for the republic as a whole. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock. Can we go out? Can I go out with the Washington Post march on this? Because I just think it's like, there we go. It's 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. EverSeal, what is it? Well, it's a sealant that's actually been around for ages, most often used in industrial applications, been around for years. And the folks over at EverSeal found out how to provide a permanent solution and use this sealant for wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. Now, the process starts with a deep cleaning. They go all the way down to clean up your wood, your concrete, make it look as new as it possibly can. And then they add their patented seal, which will absorb all the way through to become a permanent part of the wood and concrete and prevent any further deterioration for the next, you ready for this, 30 to 50 years. 30 to 50 years. Now, think about how much money you could save over 30 years if you don't have to go back and do maintenance on your wood or concrete. That it's just there and it's protected and you don't have to think about it. You can use it without having to think about it. I think that's a wonderful thing, and you could save a ton of money over the years. And if that sounds like something you'd like to investigate further, why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at EverSeal? Here's the number, 1-844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. And learn more by going to their website, ever-seal.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
A 2-year-old shot in Tennessee. Governor Lee talks special session on WTN. An update in Maui, and a murderer in Sumner County reaches a plea deal. That and more coming up at 4. I'm Mac Morey here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's look very quickly at the Dow Jones Industrial, down 180 points. The S&P down 33. NASDAQ down more than 1 percentage point, down 156 points. So all screens are red. John Maxon is standing by from Beacon Capital Management. John, what's driving the market today?
Yeah, another good day in the market, Brian. And really what the market did is worse towards the end of the day because the Fed meeting notes from July came out. And investors are really trying to absorb what was in their minutes. And really, there were several officials who still see inflation risk pretty high, and that could require some additional interest rate hikes in future meetings, which is really going to impact the economy and the credit markets. You know, Target also came out today with lower sales And with not a pretty gloomy forecast for the rest of the year, S&P is trading below its 50-day moving average now. So that's something to be really close to watch in the next week or so. So that's what's really driving it today.
All right. Thank you, John. Greatly appreciated. Learn more about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 59 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. You know, Eurofix has a very different business model. They staff all their locations with more than the average auto repair shop, just so they can be ready when your emergency comes out of nowhere. Have you ever noticed how hard it can be to get a right now appointment for vehicle repair? For some dealers, it can be more than 2 weeks out just to get an appointment. But at Eurofix, well, Eurofix has been offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without dealer pricing since 1999. Plus a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car now. If you're tired of waiting forever to get your car in and out of the shop, why don't you call Eurofix? Owner Aaron Stokes says we'll never be too busy for our customers. We are here to take their pain away and take it away now. Eurofix repairs all European cars, and Eurofix says yes to speedy repairs when others cannot or won't. Family owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 81 degrees on Music Row. No showers, just clear skies in the forecast all week. Complete weather, traffic report in 5 minutes. A 2-year-old child was shot and is now being treated at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. The shooting happened this afternoon in the 3200 block of Mayor Lane. That crime scene is active, but no threat to the public. The father was there at the house with his daughter alone. Police provided an update to Channel 4.
Right now, she's critical but alert. So we're praying that she pulls through and make a full recovery.
Officials say they have a chaplain at the hospital with the family right now, and they've not yet determined if the gun was registered. It was a handgun, and that father's cooperating with police. The officer made it clear how imperative proper training is when using firearms. There are no charges pending yet. Staying here in Tennessee, Governor Lee joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show to discuss this month's special session and said what he hopes to come out for it for Tennessee.
What I really hope happens is that Tennesseans can show the country that we do know how to lean into a really difficult issue where there are a lot of opinions about how to do it, where there is one consensus about what the goal is, which is to keep people safer, that we can have that kind of civil discourse and, do it the way it's supposed to be done, with people being passionate and weighing in on what they believe should happen here, but doing so in a way that ultimately benefits the people of the state.
And he mentioned the right to protest and how if things do get out of hand, he has the utmost confidence in the Tennessee Highway Patrol. And it's a big day on Maui because many of the roadblocks that were preventing residents on the western side of the island to go home have now come down. Alex Stone is on Maui.
Opening the roads here that lead to West Maui is a very big deal. That means that many island residents who don't live in the burn zone but have been unable to get home can now go home, and those who were trapped north of Lahaina can now get out. Lahaina itself in the burn zone remains closed, but drivers can use a bypass to go around the town and get somewhat of their normal lives back, but it's bumper-to-bumper traffic as people are returning.
And right now in Tennessee, a Sumner County man accused of killing 8 people in 2019, including members of his own family and a 12-year-old girl, will avoid the death penalty. The Tennessean says 30-year-old Michael Cummins pleaded guilty today in a deal with prosecutors, which puts him behind bars for the rest of his life without the chance for parole. The 2019 murders were so horrific, extra mental health support was provided to first responders who had to process those crime scenes. The victims were either chopped up or beaten to death. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hour number 2 of The Drive on this 16th day of August. I am Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, back in my home studio in bucolic Watertown, Tennessee. There's old Mac Morey. He's down there in the newsroom. It was good to see you, by the way. I dropped by last night at the event. Good to see you there, Mac.
Oh, yeah, man. What a great time. So much fun.
Yeah.
Great food, great listeners. It was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, really, when you get to know some of our listeners who show up at these things and are big supporters of what we do, they're just really great people, just salt of the earth, good, solid folks. And it's always good to, get to break bread with them and to catch up, shake hands, and, take a few pictures. Chris Weber is there in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons.
Yeah, I didn't get any bulgogi.
Well, the truth of the matter is, I as much as I wanted some, I didn't get any either.
Really?
Well, when you're doing radio, nobody thinks to bring the guy doing radio a plate of bulgogi.
I am just shocked, stunned, and amazed, as you would say.
And then I got off, and I went around, and, I wanted to spend a few minutes to shaking hands and saying hello to people and telling them how much I appreciated them coming out. And so by the time I worked the room, I looked at my watch. I said, I got to get home.
Past your bedtime.
Yeah, so I never did get any bulgogi, I want to be honest. I love, and so, Cabana Wifter came by for a little bit, and we decided we're just going to go back.
Oh, just go back and sit down and
go back and have a nice meal. And we're going to make the trip over there and do that. Fascinating place, by the way, and I mean I think it was a good venue for us, and good turnout, and a good time was had by all. All right, I want to talk about stuff happening in Metro Nashville. There was a big vote last night. You know that I've been following this story, and I'm going to go ahead and just confess I understand that there are many people out there within the sound of my voice who do not look at this the same way that I do. And I'm just going to tell you, we're going to still be friends. You can still listen to the show. We don't have to agree on everything, but I really am a big fan of the license plate readers. And I wasn't initially. Chris, back me up on this. When we first started talking about license plate readers, they were going to be in Mount Juliet, I think it was.
Yes.
And I came out in my initial. So I don't know. This seems like to me it's a real violation of your privacy, and I sort of had my doubts about it, and I said so on the air, right?
You did.
Well, and then I got to doing a little research, and what I found out was, okay, the cameras scan all these license plates, but they can't. But nothing registers and nothing happens unless somebody in law enforcement says, we have a criminal case. Here's the charge. Here's the criminal complaint number. And they put it in there in that way. And we're looking for this person in connection with this crime. It can also happen. Let's say, for example, if you're at a scene of a murder and you've got a great description on the getaway car, including a license plate number. Well, you could then, say, well, let's put that license plate number in and see if we can find this person, because in crimes like that, you've got to be able to act quickly. And so, you got a murder scene and there's somebody out there running around and the license plate number. Well, you may be able to track them down in very short order. So there are good reasons why you can do this. But I was of the impression that, anybody could just sort of like running a background check. Truth be known, if I need a background check run on somebody, I could probably get it done in a couple hours. Just saying. And that seemed always wrong to me. I mean, I probably have really never ever done that. But
Sure.
but I think many people would tell you that it could be done in a couple of hours. A little background check. And I thought, well, what's to stop somebody from saying, I know what that guy's license plate number is. Let's find out where he's been lately. Well, you can't do that unless you have a criminal case attached to it. And so there you have it. It is not something that is just a giant dragnet. It's looking at license plates, but it only actually responds if you've got a criminal case pending against you and that's your car. Really, honestly, that's it. That's the only time that you get tagged. And so the question has been, what's going to happen in Metro Council? Metro Council, last night, I think the vote was 24-14, one abstention, following Metro's 6-month pilot of the license plate reader program. They They have said that they're going to go ahead and do it and make it a regular part of everything that they do in Nashville. I think it's probably okay. Now, in 6 months, they scanned 71 million license plates. But this ultimately resulted in 112 arrests. 103 individuals had a local history of criminal charges, according to Metro Nashville Police Department. If you talk to some of the other agencies, counties, jurisdictions that have done this, you're going to find that they have some really remarkable stories to tell. People who were, on the most wanted list, people who are been convicted of numerous violent crimes, murder suspects, the whole 9 yards, taken off the street. Well, I don't think that the law says you don't have any expectation of privacy when you're on a public street. You don't want to hand to the police an onerous technology that could be used improperly, but if the proper safeguards are put in, this seems like to me something that could really, and by the way, if you don't have any criminal charges pending against you, you got nothing to worry about. It seems to me that it's interesting that the people who are squealing most, they say, well, it seems like it was a little heavy in certain areas of town. And, we think perhaps, there's some racism built into that system. Well, you're going to get the most hits and you're going to get the most reaction in the parts of town where you have the most crime. That just makes sense, right? And I don't know what to tell you about that, except that, if you don't have any criminal charges against you, you don't need to worry. And if the goal of getting, making a community safer, which I think is the number one goal of law enforcement, make the community safer, then you want to get violent, dangerous people off the streets. This does that. I'm happy to have some of these bad guys brought in because they were snagged by the license plate readers. Again, if we come to a place where we find that somehow it's being misused, well, then it's a Katie bar the door. It's a different thing, but there's been no indication of that happening in some of these other jurisdictions. If you can find an example where it has been, let me know, but I've not seen that. So again, you may think, well, it's a violation of privacy. Well, not really if you read the law, if you understand privacy law. Supreme Court says you have no expectation of privacy on a public street. Really, your right to privacy sort of comes to an end the moment you leave your house. On a public street, on a public sidewalk, driving around, no expectation of privacy. I'm not in favor, by the way, of red light cameras. I'm not in favor of speeding cameras, but I think that this is one that really is aimed at getting really desperate and angry and dangerous people off the streets. And I'm all for that. Tell me how it's a bad thing to have a community be safer because the people who are dangerous in that community have been arrested. Maybe you just don't want people to be arrested. Okay, well, then you and I have a different idea about what law and order is. Metro Council also passed a noise ordinance for Broadway. The push to reduce noise on Broadway got the green light. It requires that speakers and amplifiers located within 10 feet of a door, window, or other opening be oriented inward. In other words, blast the music in and not out of the building. Police were saying it's so loud down here that we can't even hear the dispatches that are coming in on our walkie-talkies because the music is so loud. So amplified music includes live music, must be limited to certain decibels, must ensure adequate public safety and health, and at the end of the day, if you have speakers, you can't blast the street. You got to blast them indoors. It is so loud, man. I'm telling you, when you go down there. And then there's this bill limiting party vehicles in downtown Nashville passes. A bill was passed Tuesday on allowing a limit of the number of entertainment vehicles that can operate in downtown Nashville. The bill allows the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission to decide what number of entertainment vehicles are convenient and necessary. Some people would say none of them are necessary, and none of them are particularly convenient, especially if you're trying to get through downtown area in the evening hours. But those renewing and applying for certificates may not be renewed if the Metro Transportation Licensing Commission thinks the number of entertainment vehicles exceeds the public need and causes too much traffic congestion. If any existing permits are not renewed, the entertainment vehicle operators would be able to operate for 100 days from the date of the non-renewal, according to the bill, to make some transition times. Isn't that interesting? So a less loud, less congested Lower Broadway after the council passed these two measures. By the way, the license plate reader thing, there's still some votes that have to be taken about where these particular license plates readers are going to go. All told, there may be as many as 117 of them around the city of Nashville in key intersections. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up landing. 20 minutes now, past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let's talk about USS. If you have had a lot of water and rain at your house and you think you've got a structural or a waterproofing issue, well, this is the company that you need to call, 615-488-7855. And listen, they will come out. This is the great thing about the folks over at USS. They're not out to sell you something. They're not up to upgrade and sell you something that you don't need. They just simply want to solve your problem. They're very solving problem oriented. They come in and they look at, well, here's the problem. All right, well, then here's what we can do to fix it. And they give you their solution. They're not out to stick you for a bunch of things that you don't need. Just, they'll just tell you what they can do and what they cannot do. If you decide to go forward, you're not going to pay a penny until the job is done and you're completely satisfied. I'm telling you, it's the way to go. Don't take my word for it. Listen to some of these people who have done business with USS. Constance, excellent experience. The entire crew was professional and knowledgeable about their service and put me at ease during the whole process. At USS, they guarantee their best. Serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com, or again, call this number, 615-488-7855.
A date has been proposed for a court date in the latest indictment against former President Donald Trump. A 2-year-old shot today in Tennessee. And the money news, that and more, 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I want to talk a little bit about a couple of economic stories. First of all, because I know that this will be important news to Cabana Wife. Because I when I go shopping with Cabana Wife, my job is basically to drive Miss Cabana Wife around. I don't have the patience to go in and do the shopping. But if I, will just drive her there, wait in the parking lot, help her load up the groceries when she comes out, and that's all she asks of me. But the thing about my Cabana Wife is that she goes to about 7 different grocery stores.
Oh, yeah, you can't get all the best deals just at one place.
Well, that's what I keep hearing.
Yeah.
And I go, I never had a problem. When I was taking care of me, and I was just a bachelor man, I needed one grocery store. Sometimes it could be a convenience store. Yeah, it's a
good grief.
Dollar General.
Yeah, that's right. Just swing me by the Dollar General, baby. I'll get what I need. Get me a frozen chicken pot pie, and I'm good to go. But this is my deal with her as I drive her around. Well, one of the grocery stores, there's like 3 of them that she goes to, is Aldi. Aldi is going to buy, you ready for this? Winn-Dixie and Harvey's supermarkets, adding some 400 grocery stores to the company. Now, some of them will be converted to Aldi stores. Some will remain as Winn-Dixie, and some will remain as Harvey's. I don't know, where are Harvey's? I don't know where that is.
We used to have them down in South Georgia, I think. So they're in that area. Yeah.
Tennessee already has 57 Aldis. And so, if they will probably, there are 2,304 Aldi stores in 39 states. And so now they're going to be adding some of them. Winn-Dixie stores will now become, but they're all going to be owned by Aldi. I thought that was interesting.
I like Aldi.
Pretty
nice.
I've never gone in. I just sit in the parking lot.
The only thing I don't like is that you have to put a quarter in the buggy handle to use the shopping cart.
Yes.
I guess to keep you from stealing them.
Do you get your quarter back?
Yeah, you stick it in there and it releases a little chain that connects it to the buggy in front of it.
Seriously, I don't go in, so
Obviously,
I don't know.
Yeah. And you got to bag your own stuff. But I'm okay with that.
Yeah, personally,
that's becoming a thing everywhere.
Everywhere.
So I'm not sure about that. And then the other economic news for the folks at Target, they reported today their earnings, and it's not good. Target reported Wednesday it was lowering its sales and profit expectations for the rest of the year, with the company having faced a conservative backlash earlier in the quarter over the release of LGBTQ products for kids. Target lowered its sales and profit expectations for the rest of the year after its quarterly sales fell for the first time in 6 years, declining 5.4%. While it announced it expected a share price to clock in between $7 and $8, the decrease in expectation follows backlash from conservatives after the company announced a Pride Month collection in May. And it did include LGBTQ merchandise that was aimed at kids. And so here, again, that is a big hit for the folks over at Target. And it's again, I see a theme here. I see things, I'm trying to connect some dots here. So you got the Bud Light thing, where conservatives said, no, we're not doing that. Then you got the Target thing that's going on here. There are other places that have had, Disney, for example, have had real problems in that regard. And then you look at some of the other things that are happening, like, these are all sort of things that you see out there every day in popular culture life. We got this song, Richmond North of Richmond, which is now, climbing the charts and still doing well, and everybody's screaming about it. And that went to number 1 on iTunes. I got a big screed from folks about, it's not Billboard. I just happen to notice it's What's the most important thing right now? Downloads, I would think. and iTunes is, of course, the biggest platform for that. But it went number one on iTunes, and again, that's conservatives reacting. The try that in a small town thing with Jason Aldean, that was conservatives reacting. I think that there are people in America who are conservatives who have just said enough of having this stuff shoved down our throats. We're just not going to go there anymore, and they really are becoming something that I think companies and corporations have to think about, because these consumers are willing to stand their ground. And I don't think it's ever going to get any better for the folks at Budweiser. I don't know if it'll ever get any better. So it has power, and it's being noted. And it seems like there's some kind of grassroots thing going on here. We'll continue to watch it. By the way, right now, 31 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock.
.431, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 80 degrees, no showers, no thunderstorms in sight this whole week. Full forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. The Georgia prosecutor bringing charges against former President Donald Trump has a schedule in mind for the trial. Stephen Portnoy.
While they have until the end of next week to present themselves for booking at the county jail, the Fulton County DA says the defendants in the racketeering case should appear for their arraignment the week of September 5th. That's right after Labor Day. Fonnie Willis says the trial of the former president and his 18 co-defendants should begin on March 4th. That's the day before the Super Tuesday primaries in more than a dozen states, including in the two largest states, California and Texas.
Right now in Tennessee, police are now investigating a crime scene off of Mayor Lane in Bordeaux after a 2-year-old child was shot. That child is in critical condition but is alert, according to officials. The child and her father were the only ones at the apartment at the time of the shooting, and that father is cooperating with police during this investigation. Now over to the money news. Daria Albinger fills us in on Wall Street today.
Stocks continue their end-of-summer slide. The Dow dropped 181 points. The Nasdaq fell 156, and the S&P gave up 34. August is considered one of the worst months of the year for the markets, and worries about inflation are only adding to the uncertainty. Most Federal Reserve officials aren't ready to call it quits yet on interest rate increases. The minutes of the central bank's latest meeting also show, though, that members are seeing sure signs that inflationary pressures are easing. And that could have been behind Chair Jerome Powell's non-committal stance on future hikes after the last meeting. Discount grocer Aldi wants to buy Southeastern Grocers Incorporated, the parent company of 400 Winn-Dixies and Harveys across the South. If the deal is approved by regulators, it's expected to close in the first half of 2024. The German-based grocer says it would rebrand some of the locations it acquires as Aldi stores.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Genesis Diamond's most extreme value on diamond engagement rings coming to an end. You have until a Sunday at 5 p.m. to get the price of a lifetime on a certified GIA diamond ring. Response has been incredible. People have driven for hours to buy like a dealer buys. All GIA certified diamond rings are on sale. A full 20% discount off Genesis. Amazing everyday value. Now we're talking about values that you never thought would be possible, from a half carat to 20 carats, all hand-picked for maximum brilliance, all graded by the most prestigious gem lab in the entire world. Don't be surprised to see jewelry store owners and diamond dealers shopping right there alongside you. Rounds, radiants, pear shapes, ovals, princess cuts, cushion cuts, emerald cuts. Genesis has the largest GIA diamond ring selection you have ever seen. And now through Sunday, you can take advantage of this rare buying opportunity. Limit one per customer. Get the Genesis no middlemen's direct importer price minus an extra 20%, all on GIA diamond engagement rings. Now through Sunday at Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs. See the store for details. .38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair. You're listening to The Drive. And as often as we can, when we're lucky, we get to talk to Pete Hegseth on Wednesdays at about this time. Pete, of course, is the anchor or co-host of the Fox and Friends Weekend edition, and also a Sumner County resident. And I was just talking to some people last night, Pete, from Sumner County, who are active in the politics there, and they said they're very excited to have Pete Hegseth, as one of their residents now.
Tell them I'd like to get more involved. I love it, and I appreciate. There's a lot of good things that have gone on in Sumner County too, with school boards and the county commissions, and they're fighting back against some of the Rhino stuff. It's good to see.
And that's exactly what they were telling me. Well, anyway, Pete, good to have you with us. It's been a while. Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the thing that everybody's talking about, this latest round of indictments that came from Georgia. These are state charges. I guess it seems to me the thing, if you want to know if this is political, look at when the trial is scheduled now to start. It's one day before Super Tuesday. Who says this is not political? Of course it's political.
Of course it is. The one-day thing is what gets me on that, because when you look at the timeline from Elvin Bragg to January 6th to Mar-a-Lago documents, now to Georgia, it's literally one day, 24 hours. Those indictments are announced after some big bombshell about Hunter Biden or the Bidens. I mean, to the day, to the weekend, this is being played as an opportunity to highlight the fact that they want to make Donald Trump look like a criminal, and they certainly don't want to talk about everything that's being revealed about Joe Biden, Mr. 10%, and Hunter. And so when you look at Donald Trump's calendar for the remainder of this year in 2024, he will be the nominee. That's over. And they're now setting their sights toward how do we disrupt him, tie his legal funds up so much. I mean, this is a targeting of a political opponent. This is election interference in real time. It's becoming more and more real that they're willing to use every aspect of the state to crush their political opponent. And, I would just say this, Brian, real quick. I think Donald Trump's got a 40-45% lead in the Republican primary. Every single other Republican in that race, if they think they have a shot to win, it's because they're going with the Democrat premise that Donald Trump will be taken down, that these indictments will work, that he'll be knocked down so many rungs that they'll have a chance, which means they're effectively, willing to draft off of the attempts of the left to destroy the top Republican nominee. I don't see how we'll see what happens at the debate and everything else, but they're not viable candidacies at this point when you've got the popularity of Donald Trump, considering what's being done to him. He should be able to close ranks and run.
Yeah. I've been watching, poll numbers for a long, long time. And I can't ever remember a candidate having this much of a lead in the early going. And in what seems to me almost an insurmountable lead. I don't know how in the world you can make up 38, 39, 40 points. I mean, it seems really impossible, short of something really substantial happening that I don't see on the horizon. I just don't see any way that any of these other candidates can overcome the lead that Trump has developed. Republicans,
there just isn't a way.
They're sticking with him. Yeah,
isn't a way. I mean, you're running against the most powerful political movement in our lifetimes. You're feeling the 2016 energy right now amongst the base of people are seeing what's being done to him. If you want to take him down, you got to crack into his support, but his support is stronger than ever. And frankly, you don't have any move. The most interesting and unique candidate of the bunch is Vivek Ramaswamy, who's willing to speak his mind, and he's talking about backing Trump. He's the only one being really strong about these indictments. The other ones are beginning to look, and because they are more conventional candidates, and they're not going to light any fires under anybody. I see Ron DeSantis, he's got a big ground game in Iowa with all these canvassers. At this point, is anyone going to be convinced to leave Trump and go to DeSantis because some 19-year-old with a clipboard shows up at their door in Iowa? Like, everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows who the candidates are. And no one's been vetted more thoroughly than Donald Trump. What are they going to find at this point that they haven't already been looking for and digging for? So that's why I think the gracious thing for these Republicans to do in the next couple of weeks is to start bowing out and saying this thing's over. Because if Trump's got to spend money on a primary and on lawyers, and then you got to beat the DNC and Joe Biden and all of the media and all of social media and all the lawfare that's going at him, you may have another candidate. Other people out there might have candidates they prefer. It's just not that moment. This is our horse, is the way I see it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I don't see anything changing that. Like I said, unless there's something out there that's on the horizon that just has not been clear to us that we don't see coming. Well, we'll watch it really carefully. The other part of it is that since we talked to you last, a special counsel has been named in the Hunter Biden matter. Boy, does that seem like, the more we look at that, the more it seems like this is just a play for time. This is a thing to stretch it out beyond the election cycle and to make it not an issue for the current president of the United States as he runs for re-election.
Well said. It's an inside job. It's giving what everyone was calling for without giving it at all. It's creating the perception that, we're looking into Hunter just like we're looking into Trump, when what they're actually doing is appointing the guy who spent 5 years trying to cover up for him and then was willing to cut a plea deal that everyone sees as patently absurd. And now that the investigation continues, He doesn't have to testify. Evidence doesn't have to be revealed. They're not able to talk about it because it's an ongoing investigation. You're exactly right. String out the timeline. That's
well, you've got the top law enforcement and lawyer in the country, Merrick Garland, making this announcement. Then I almost immediately hear people like Andrew McCarthy and Alan Dershowitz and others say, there's no way he can do this because a special counsel is supposed to be coming from outside of government. And not only is this guy not coming from outside of government, he's not even going to be asked to step aside from his U.S. attorney duties in the state of Delaware. How can this be legal? And if it is illegal, what am I missing? I'm not seeing anybody out there making the hard case that this is not even something that is legally possible.
Oh, you mean Republicans being soft and not fighting back properly? I mean, it's in their DNA for a long. It would require going up against previous, because there's plenty of Republicans that said we need a special counsel. They just thought they were going to get a real special counsel.
A real special counsel.
A real one with a real independent person with fresh eyes from the outside to look at everything from the laptop to the tax crimes to the guns to the influence peddling to the connection to Joe Biden. That's what a real special counsel would look like. Instead, once this happens, yes, there should be. I mean, the problem is it's really only Kevin McCarthy, and if you can legally challenge it in court and get it to the Supreme Court, anything that Republicans can do, anything state district attorneys, attorney generals can do, they should do, because this is a sham. It's yet again. But the problem is we assume we're playing on a fair playing field. We're just not. I mean, I love what Alan Dershowitz has been saying recently about the steps they took with Al Gore in 2000. And that's somehow not election interference, but what Donald Trump did in calling Georgia is. We're in silly land. We're in insanity right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this, do you agree with me or not, that a lot of these things that have been leveled against Donald Trump will be thinned out with pretrial motions and that kind of stuff, so that, a lot of the stuff that is now sort of leveled against him won't be there once his attorneys start to do the things that attorneys do.
Yes, that's my understanding from talking to people and observing it. Yes, they're going to string it out, but all the left wants is the cloud. All they want is the talking point. All they want. Do you think these would really be coming out this way if he was not running for president? This is all about a political opponent being under indictment. They can say, we can't elect this guy who would be in that position. So, yes, if Trump's lawyers are deft at what they're doing, you string this out, you push it out, and he wins the election and everything changes. I also think I've heard Mark Levin argue this and others, that there's a case to be made that even the Georgia charges are pardonable, that there is a supremacy clause and other things that would give a president a lot of latitude to pardon. So this whole election could come down to Donald Trump's future in the White House or in the slammer. And I think there's a lot of people, when you contrast that with Joe Biden and his background, this is going to be something like we've never seen. And there's no energy for Biden. There's tons of energy for Trump, but they still control the voting system and the early voting and the COVID rules. And so if the RNC isn't on top of how we're doing our own ballot chasing and ballot harvesting legally, then we could end up on the wrong side for all the wrong reasons.
Well, I want to talk about one other thing, and that is I always look at what's going on in popular culture and see if there are some trends that, that we should be picking up on that might have political implications. Number one, you got this new song that came out called Richmond North of Richmond, and it went from, relative obscurity to the top of iTunes in like a couple of days. Really remarkable response to that song. It's a song that, really taps into the anger of the working man, it would seem to me. You've got other things. I'm like that. The same thing happened with Try That in a Small Town. Try that in a that by Jason Aldean. And then, you got, just looking at other things, you've got the numbers from Target are out today, not looking real good.
Yes.
Certainly, the folks at Budweiser have been taught a lesson about making sure that they understand their customers better. Do you think that all these things together, these pop culture sort of things that seem to be getting a response from many, many Americans, what are we to draw from that?
What I draw from that is that they've culturally overreached, which we know they do. When they get more confident in their power, they push for what they really believe. Right now, we're not just progressives, we're communists, or we're socialists, or we believe in reverse discrimination. And people repel from that. You're not going to trans my kid. You're not going to peddle tuck-it swimsuits. You're not going to tell my white kid he's racist and my black kid he's a victim. And they repulse from that. But so culturally, they've gotten ahead of their skis. What they're still counting on, well, there are many things, but amongst them, an open border that would create a future voting class for them, which is something they very much believe in. And then also controlling the systems and mechanisms of voting, especially in urban centers, where they chase down low propensity, unlikely to vote voters and try to stack that up against the energy of conservatives who go out and vote on election day. So they know they have cultural problems. They know they have a flawed candidate, but they're counting on the things that have worked for them before to work again. It is. I think whatever Donald Trump does, he's got to play his own game, and he's got to do what he's done before by ignoring the incentives of establishment routes through an election cycle. Appeal to that song. Appeal to those instincts of people who really do want the country that they thought they had, that really do love it, that know their economic prospects are minimal when you're flooding the border and you're giving away to China. He's got so many avenues to tap into and new demographics to tap into as well. I mean, this could be 2016 all over again if it's played right, but everything is stacked against the truth ever getting out.
All right. Well, Pete Hegseth, it's always a pleasure to chat with you when we're lucky on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Drive once again.
You got it, Brian. Thank you.
It is 51 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. If you're a fan of Legend Steakhouse like I am, you can enjoy some of those same flavors right at home, right on your very own grill. Just take a walk down your local grocery store aisle, places like Walmart, Kroger, and look for Johnny Fleeman's very own brand. You'll likely see his famous fruit tea at your local grocery store, along with salad dressings and Johnny Fleeman's steak marinades. Now, Johnny Fleeman's proprietary blend will give your steaks, chicken, and chops a flavor that will hit a home run with family and friends. It's low in sodium, about a third of other brands, and you don't have to worry about over-marinating. You can also use his marinade to enhance any other dish like rice recipes or vegetables, just about anything. So if your favorite grocer isn't stocking Johnny Fleeman products, ask them to do so. For more information, just go to johnnyfleeman.com. And, of course, it goes without saying, for those times when you want someone else to do the cooking, they'll always be glad to see you at your nearest Legend Steakhouse for lunch or dinner.
Hey, folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
You're doing a little work around the house. You decide, well, it's time to put a coat of paint on the house. Well, I'm going to suggest that you not do that. What, you say? Why not? Well, because if you do paint, well, paint's paint. It's going to chip. It's going to crack. It's going to peel. Won't be very long before you have to paint again. But if you go and see the folks at Rhino Shield, they'll give you something that will last a full 25 years. That's right. It's guaranteed for a quarter century. You see, Rhino Shield is not paint. It's 10 times thicker than paint. It's infused with special 3M ingredients, billions of microspheres, that allow the coating to expand and contract, and that's why they can offer a 25-year warranty against cracking, chipping, and peeling. Clay Morris and the folks at Rhino Shield of Nashville have a great reputation, and they care deeply about doing quality work. I often, quote people who have done business. Let me just mention, I have some dear friends of the Garretts, and they heard this ad, and they decided that they would try it, and they have been incredibly happy with the work that's been done on their 100-year-old farm home. It's a beautiful home, and it's now got a great coating on it. The folks over at Rhino Shield want to do this for you as well. Why don't you give Clay Morris a call if this sounds like something you'd be interested in? 615-474-1729. That's 615-474-1729. Learn more at rhinoshieldnashville.com.
$5 I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 81 degrees right now in Music City. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. A child shot today in Tennessee. A 2-year-old girl was shot while home alone with her father at their apartment in Bordeaux. That child in critical condition, but still alert while being taken care of at Vanderbilt Children's Medical Hospital. That father is cooperating with the TBI's investigation. Him and that child were the only two at the house at the time of the shooting. Police say that it is extremely important to have firearms in a secure place while inside of the house. Right now in Clarksville, a shootout lasted 12 hours last night at the Paddock Place Apartments, ending in 2 dead suspects. Channel 4 Sharon Dankwa tells us one family was still present at those apartments when everyone else was evacuated.
Clarksville police say they came to this apartment complex looking for 2 brothers. They say those 2 brothers were accused of multiple aggravated burglary incidences in the area. Now, when they found the brothers, they barricaded themselves inside an apartment with a hostage. Police say hours after negotiations didn't work, the officers broke into the brothers' apartment and then they both started shooting. They say both brothers were shot and killed, while the 4 officers and the hostage were also shot, but only injured. The man I talked to says he and his family didn't get evacuated like the rest of the people in there, and they were stuck in their unit taking cover.
And that man is now stuck outside of his apartment while they investigate. Legislation in Tennessee, a bill was passed yesterday that limits the number of party buses downtown. The bill will put the power in the hands of the Metro Transportation Licensing Commission to decide how many are allowed. The vehicle operators have 100 days from the date of the non-renewal of their permits. And to go along with that, speakers on Broadway near the open doors must now be facing inwards to reduce excessive noise for patrons walking by. And 106 people are now confirmed dead on Maui from the wildfire there, with fears of many more. Alex Stone is in Maui and has the story of the search teams that have flooded that island.
It's about the families of the dead, according to Frank Taylor, leader of Nevada Task Force 1, a FEMA team here with their cadaver dogs searching for human remains.
We're here to put those families at ease, and we're going to do our very best to find your loved ones so you can put this to bed.
But still much of Lahaina needs to be searched. The governor believes that effort will be wrapped up before the president arrives on Monday.
And President Biden and congressional Democrats today celebrate a year since passing and signing the Inflation Reduction Act. Andy Field tells us the president wishes they hadn't called it that.
President Biden knew the Inflation Reduction Act would not immediately cut inflation, but it does spend billions on fighting climate change, creating jobs, and lowering people's health care bills, which Mr. Biden says it's doing.
And you got it done without a single vote in the other team.
Republicans now in charge of the House, trying to repeal the green energy spending. They'll have a tough time getting it past a Democratic Senate majority.
And that Inflation Reduction Act was passed without any Republican votes. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, everybody, 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Back for hour number 3 of the drive after spending a day over in Hendersonville last night for our big live remote. It was good to see people there last night. Thank you for being a part of what we do here and being such good supporters of this station and this program. So many nice people came up with really wonderful and warm things to say. I think a pretty good time was had by all, but glad to be back in the studio doing the regular thing here, and where I have all my things put where they belong.
And you got all your buttons handy. Well,
I got my buttons, but it's more than that. It's just like, I'm such a muscle memory guy, you know. Where are my ads? Right here. Where's my information? It's on this big rack right behind me. I mean, I've got a system in place, and I'm sort of a stickler for, routine.
Yep. Same.
Yeah, but anyway, glad to be back and all of that. Great time last night. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the administration. I can't believe that Joseph Biden and Democrats believe it's a good idea to go out across the nation and give speeches where the president of the United States can actually, try to make the case that Bidenomics is something that's good. I mean, they're touting Bidenomics, but I don't think it's resonating with people because people know where they live and they know exactly what's going on in their lives. And they just don't buy that the things that Biden has done to try to make the economy better have had any real impact. I think most people don't think that it's had much of an impact. And so it's puzzling. Why would they do that? And if you're going to do it better than this, okay? You ready for this? This is the way. This is the way their Bidenomics event started the other day.
President Joe Biden, y'all. President Joe Biden, y'all.
And then nothing happened.
Uh-oh.
Nobody came out.
Well, I'm a little underwhelmed, aren't you all?
Yes.
I think I messed up. Y'all, please vote for me, okay?
How in the world is it that you have a situation where you're on the stage and you're about to introduce the leader of the free world? You've got your rundown. You know everything that's supposed to take place. How do things get messed up where you call the name of the president of the United States and he's not there? I mean, left hand, right. I mean, what a disaster that is. What a bunch of rookies. I mean, this is stuff that they do at the White House day in and day out every day. You should never be in a situation where you call the name of the president. I mean, what was he doing? Was he out taking a tinkle? I don't know. Where was he? I have no idea. No, and they haven't explained, but one way or the other, it got worse from there because Biden starts making up numbers.
And unlike the last president, in my first 2 years in office, even with all we've done, I'm the first one to cut the federal debt by $1.7 trillion. $1.7 trillion cut.
Well, okay. I don't know that that's an accurate number. Most people look at it and say, "Wow, that's a real oversell." In fact, most of the numbers that he lays out there are often questioned by people on both sides of the aisle. They say, well, hold on a minute, that doesn't quite add up. But the idea that, hey, man, you are, the Bidenomics is rocking it, and you need to be excited about what Joe Biden has done for you economically. It's just not there. It's not there. So, from starting off with sort of a big faux pas where
President Joe Biden, y'all.
And then doesn't happen.
Where am I? What's going to happen to me?
I don't know. So it starts out there, then you start quoting statistics that are just wrong.
I'm a little underwhelmed, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm just absolutely underwhelmed. And then comes this story. This story is, he tells this all the time. He gets out on the campaign trail, and he keeps telling this story about a conductor. Well, I'm going to play it out for you so you'll hear it, but you've probably heard this story before. A story that is 1,000% verifiably not true. But he keeps telling it. So here we go again. Joe Biden telling the infamous train conductor story. It never ceases to entertain.
My wife called me one day and says, "Did you read the paper today?" And I was up campaigning for a guy named Pat Leahy in Vermont. I said, "No, honey, I didn't see the Wilmington paper." He said, "Headline, above the fold." Only a politician's wife would say that. "Biden, poorest man in Congress." Is that true? Like I was cheating on her or something. But I was. And I couldn't afford a house in Washington, and I couldn't afford a house in Delaware.
Now, I want to say, when I was covering Congress, it often was said that Biden was not a very wealthy man. When he was a member of the Senate, he was not considered to be a wealthy man. And when you look around the Senate, there are a lot of millionaires, even a billionaire maybe, but nobody that would say that about Joe Biden. He had the reputation of being a very modest man. Lunch Bucket Joe, that's what he sold his name at. Well, so my question is, where did all the money come from? I mean, why would you raise the fact that, you were once considered the poorest, but now you've got millions in the bank? It only raises questions about how in the hell did you do that? Anyway, the story continues.
I sold my house in Delaware, I'd lose an election. So I started a commute. It's only 300 miles a day, but it still takes me an average of 4 hours beginning to end. And so what happened was when you travel as vice president on Air Force planes, they keep a precise number of miles you travel. And I guess it was in my 7th year or 6th year as vice president, there was a headline in the New York paper saying Biden travels almost 1,200,000 miles on Air Force planes, 1,200,000 or whatever. I'm getting on the
He's not even really sure of the number. Well, whatever.
Train one day. The Secret Service are the best in the world. They don't like me traveling on the train because there are too many opportunities for people to do bad things on trains. And so I'm getting on a train to go home and see my mom, who was sick and in hospice at my home. And this guy, I won't mention his name because I will get him in trouble.
No, you're not going to get him in trouble because, as you will find out in a few moments, he's not alive.
But one of the senior guys in Amtrak who I rode with all the time comes up and goes, "Joey, baby," grabs my cheek.
He does that every time. Every time he tells this story, he tells Joey, baby, and then he talks about how the guy grabbed his cheek. Must have made an impact on him, except it's not possible that this actually happened.
Swear to God, I thought you were going to shoot him. And I said, no. I said, "What's the matter, Angie?" He said, I read this thing about over 1 million miles on Air Force planes. He said, "Hell, you know how many miles you travel on Amtrak?" I said, "No, Angie, I don't know." He said, "We just had a retirement dinner up in Newark." He said, "You traveled average 117 days a year, round trip, 300 miles a day, 36 years. That's 1,285,000 miles. I don't want to hear any more about the Air Force." True story.
Juan, I want to make sure you understand. He believes this is a completely, absolutely, 100% verifiable true story.
True story. I swear to God.
No, honestly, you shouldn't do that because it is not true. And you say, "Well, Wilson, how can you know? You weren't there." Well, it's pretty easy. Because the man that he mentions in this story, who came up and said, "Joey, baby," and grabbed him by the cheek and pinched him, had been dead for a year when the Air Force put out a release that said that he had flown 1 million miles on Air Force Two. The guy was dead. This did not happen. This whole story is, well, you're upset about the air. No, it's simply not true. Cannot happen. None of the numbers line up. It's something that he tells all the time. You would think somebody would pull him aside and say, "Mr. President, let's stop. Can we do a pass on the on the conductor story and Air Force Two and all of that, because I'm telling you, there are some people out there who point out that this could not have happened. And either he has chosen, either that hasn't happened, or he has chosen to ignore, and he continues to tell the story. Or maybe a third option, he forgot that somebody told him not to tell that story. I think that's probably what is really going on here. But it didn't happen. Didn't happen. And it never happened. And it's about the 30th time, I think. And by the way, the numbers always change somehow. He just makes up numbers on the fly. But that did not happen. And then, you come to the end of the event, and this is what it is to have a president who is, under investigation, as Joe Biden is, Hunter Biden, his son, under investigation. Joe Biden, did he take a bribe? He doesn't want any uncomfortable questions being thrown his direction. So the thing that happens, and this happens anytime a president does not want to answer questions of the press corps after an event, they basically make sure that it's not possible for the president to hear the question.
May God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. President! Mr. President! You can't hear over the Marine band. I mean, there's nothing that's a better question blocker than a good Sousa march. But that happens now every time. I mean, I used to see this all the time during Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton was the president, and, he didn't want to answer questions, and he knew that if there were reporters around him, that they would try to shout out a question, and it would most likely be about Monica Lewinsky, and he didn't want that. So they would do this. And they never, it's just their way of controlling the press, keeping the press at bay, keeping the press at arm's length. Now, you may not like the press. You may have a real hatred of the press, and that's understandable. But, there are people who would ask the question if the opportunity were presented, and they don't get the opportunity because Sousa, we're going to Sousa you. You know what the other thing they used to do? I could never prove it, but it would always happen. I often went in early to the White House and did the gaggle. There would be you'd get there early and early in the morning, and they would call a gaggle, and that meant that all the reporters went up front to the press secretary's office, and there was an opportunity to ask questions. You weren't allowed to record it, but you were allowed to take notes. And you would say to the press secretary, what's on tap for today, blah, 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 blah. And then if there was a nugget of news that they wanted to release, then the thing I was supposed to do was immediately go straight out to the cameras, put on the microphone, and let people know that I had something from the gaggle. Invariably, the moment my microphone would come open and I would begin, they would bring out the leaf blowers, and they'd go up and down, the Northwest Executive Drive, and they would be blowing leaves, and it was like they wait, and then if I stopped, a moment or two later they would stop. When I was done, they were done. I mean, I could never prove it, but it happened so many times. Or some other piece of equipment, or some car, truck backing up with supplies. Beep, 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 right down the driveway in front of the cameras, and making it very difficult and distracting. I actually used to think that the press secretary would sit in his office and say, all right, now take out the leaf, now hit him with the leaf blower. Yeah, that's it. I mean, they were just plotting against you. But it made it very difficult to ask questions. And that seems to be what's going on with Joseph Biden and his press corps right now. 22 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock.
Governor Lee joins WTN and talks this upcoming special session. A Tennessee elementary school placed on lockdown today, and license plate readers, they could be here to stay. I'll have those stories and more coming up. 5:30. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
And let's call it 27 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Short moment that I have here. Let me just say they are now saying that charges could be renewed against Alec Baldwin, the actor, as a forensic report shows that the trigger on the gun used in the Rust shooting had to be pulled. And it was in his hand. Well, of course it had to be pulled. Independent testing on the weapon used in the fatal 2021 shooting on the film set of the film Rust shows the trigger had to be pulled. The gun fired normally and did not malfunction, according to a report filed in court, raising the possibility charges could be refiled against actor Alec Baldwin. The fired evidence cartridge is the consequence of a normal hammer fall from the fully cocked position of the hammer, the report compiled by the Forensic Services of Arizona states. And so this now was put in there by the film's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who is charged with tampering with the gun used in the shooting. Baldwin has maintained he pulled the gun's hammer as far as he could without cocking the gun and then released the hammer, but did not pull the trigger. And so that was always his case. They dropped the charges, but now will the charges be brought against him? I don't know. I mean, it seems to me one of the things, I'm not here to defend Alec Baldwin, but let me just say this. If he was handed a gun and was told, as all of the evidence says it was the case, this is a cold gun, which in the meaning of that parlance is that it's not loaded. It should not be loaded. And it was not a cold gun. It was a hot gun. How is that his fault? Did he follow to the letter of the law everything that should have happened? Yeah, but in your mind, you are operating under, as you've been handed a gun, you've been told this gun is not loaded. That's the last thing you know while you're doing it. And so, I don't know about all of this, about whether he pulled the trigger or not, one way or the other. But how in the world can he be completely at fault when he was told the gun by people that, or were in charge, that the gun was not loaded? It was a cold gun. I don't know. We'll watch it. But one way or the other, charges against Alec Baldwin, they are now saying, could well be reinstated after being dropped. It is 30 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.5:30, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 81 degrees right now on Music Row. No showers in the forecast all week through the weekend. Complete forecast, latest traffic report, upcoming in 5 minutes. Governor Bill Lee joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show today and discussed some possible new legislation that could come in the special session when it comes to public safety in the state.
Currently, we only collect DNA for certain types of felons. So what happens is you'll have a guy that commits a crime. We don't collect DNA. Might have been a murderer in another state and could have easily been caught if we had that in a database. So data and data sharing and information that's already in statute available to us, those loopholes are things that are really important. We got to make it easier to catch criminals.
And he called the special session a vehicle for people to have their voices heard on how to make Tennessee safer. And staying here in the volunteer state, Coopertown Elementary School was placed on a brief lockdown this morning due to a suspicious activity in the parking lot. Police arrived and quickly after calling a lockdown on the school, realized that it was a medical episode. That school was only on soft lockdown for 10 minutes until officials determined what was happening. Right now in Nashville, license plate reader cameras to fight crime will be permanent in Nashville if it passes 2 more votes in the next Metro Council term. The resolution advanced last night after arguments for it and against it.
Downtown Nashville property owners, business owners, and residents overwhelmingly support the use of license plate readers to improve public safety.
I am urging you to vote no on the LPR resolution because the impact will hurt our black community.
An amendment was added requiring police to consult with community groups in each precinct before deciding where to put the cameras. News 2 says that Councilman Freddie O'Connell, who's in the runoff to be mayor, voted against the bill. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
All right, so is your air conditioning getting the job done right now? I mean, it is. These are the dog days of August, and it's hot and it's humid. And if you got a problem, call the number I would call, 615-775-7833. And the folks at Busy Bee will buzz right over to your hive and get you up and running as soon as humanly possible. Listen, maybe that's all you need. Maybe it's just an easy fix, and most oftentimes it is just that. But if you are in the position where your system is 20 years old or so, maybe it's time to think about replacing it. These things don't last forever. If you find yourself needing to replace your HVAC or your plumbing, you're not going to find a better deal than you do at Busy Bee HVAC. You should become a member of the Beehive Club. I am. For $99, you get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. Well, let's head to the swamp. Been a while since we've done a trip down to the swamp where the muck and the guck and the goo and all the swamp creatures live. I did 31 years in that godforsaken swamp, and so my job here is to help interpret the things that happen down there in a way that you might be able to understand. Let's see what's going on. All right. The White House has announced that Joe Biden will indeed now go to Maui and the disaster zone, sometime next week. For days and days and days, you have a disaster, it's a tragedy. When you look at the pictures that come out of Maui about how that entire island has basically been turned into a place that is, instead of a tropical paradise, it's just now soot and ash, and that houses have been lost, and maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 people have died that we know about so far, and there are a lot more people missing. It's a real bona fide tragedy. And yet, over the course of the weekend, Biden never came to camera, never came to answer questions about all this, never had a statement expressing, condolence and a reassurance to the people of Hawaii that, we're going to be good, we're going to be there, FEMA's on its way. I mean, things were happening, but Biden couldn't be bothered to come to the camera. And again, he's the leader of the free world. You expect when you have a place like Maui that's been just absolutely obliterated by fire and a complete loss of that island and that you had so many people who died, that you would have something, the traditional statement. In fact, when asked, can you come and talk to us, Mr. President, about Maui? No comment. And then a smile. Like, you guys. Well, no, it's not unreasonable for reporters to want to get a comment from the President of the United States on things that are happening in the country. And you always wanted to get a comment. Can you get a comment from the President about blah, 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 blah? Yeah, well, whatever. You're going to be asked. But the reason he didn't want to come to camera had nothing to do with Maui. It came to the fact that, he's afraid he's going to be asked and jacked up about a question on Hunter Biden, which is, hey, I'm sorry, that's going on too. Sorry about that. But, are you the leader of the free world, or are you not the leader of the free world? He apparently now has decided the criticism is such that he can no longer ignore. He still hasn't gone to East Palestine. East Palestine with the train derailment. He never went. Said he was going to go, never did. But now apparently he's going to go to this. And so we'll see. I'll tell you what will happen. He'll go. He'll meet with some families. Cameras will be kept at a distance. He'll have something that he says from a podium. And then, it will be the thing like we saw before. He'll be as soon as he gets through, God bless America. And you're not going to be able to answer any questions. You're not going to be able to ask anything. You just got Sousa, my friend. I still love Sousa marches, though. In other news from the swamp, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm is being pressured to resign over what are called repeated ethical lapses. I call Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm the energy elf. She looks like a little elfin character, and she apparently has done some things that are really questionable. Granholm, according to the Washington Examiner, has faced significant scrutiny since assuming office in 2021 as the top official in the Energy Department from Republicans who have alleged the former Democrat Michigan governor has failed to follow federal laws surrounding ethics. Coalition of right-leaning organizations wrote a 5-page letter to Biden on Tuesday that alleged Granholm had disregarded and deprioritized her ethics obligations at every turn, citing a handful of examples and requesting the secretary's immediate resignation. Since Ms. Granholm's responses to these allegations are often relied upon some variation of, "It wasn't my fault," this has left the American people wondering where exactly the buck stops in your administration. The groups, which included the conservative media watchdog Media Research Center, the Heartland Institute think tank, the Energy and Environment Legal Institute, and the ethic watchdogs Protect the Public's Trust and American Accountability Foundation. It's a good point because, Biden said, we're going to be the most ethical. We care deeply about ethics. But does he really? It doesn't seem like he really wants to ask too many difficult questions. Granholm was the Michigan governor. But she's not born in the United States? Granholm was born in Canada. But you can be apparently a governor of Michigan and not be born an American citizen. And you can be in a presidential cabinet and not be born an American citizen. You just can't be president. So there's that. At least we don't have to worry about Jennifer Granholm running for office, because that is very well established. She was not born in the USA. And then let's see what else we got here. Top FBI officials involved in Russiagate investigation pleads guilty to conspiracy to aid Russian oligarch. Okay, what's this about? Daily Caller. A former FBI official who played a key role in the Russiagate investigation into former President Donald Trump pleaded guilty on Tuesday to conspiracy to provide illegal services to a sanctioned Russian oligarch. This according to a press release from the U.S. Southern District of New York Attorney's Office. Charles McGonigal, a former special agent and chief of counterintelligence at the FBI's New York field office, pleaded guilty to money laundering and conspiring to violate the International Emergency Economics Powers Act. Wow. In connection to services provided to Oleg Deripaska, a sanctioned Russian oligarch, according to a release that came out yesterday. McGonigal was a key player in spearheading the Crossfire hurricane probe, informally referred to as Russiagate, which was the investigation into the Trump campaign's alleged ties to Russia. McGonigal, by his own admission, betrayed his oath and actively concealed his illicit work at the bidding of a sanctioned Russian oligarch. Assistant Attorney General of the Justice Department's National Security Division, Matthew Olson, said, "Today's plea shows the Department of Justice's resolve to pursue and dismantle the illegal networks that Russian oligarchs have tried to use to escape the reach of sanctions and evade our laws." So, there's just three little things that are happening in the swamp. We've been talking a little bit about Biden and Bidenomics and how the president is going out and talking about how good the economy is, how wonderful the economy is. There's no polling data that suggests that Americans agree with him on that point, but he believes Bidenomics is, of course, the way to go. And here's a story from the Daily Wire. President Joe Biden touted his economic record and decreasing inflation during a speech in Milwaukee, even as millions of Americans pay hundreds more for basic goods and services than 2 years ago. He talks about lower inflation and said that Americans paid $709 more for basic goods in July of 2023 than they did in July of 2021, which was just months into Biden's time in office. Well, the spending was also $202 more than July 22, according to Mark Zandi, the chief economic analyst for Moody Analytics. Inflation is down. That is true. But inflation has always been running a little hotter than wage gains. So what does that mean? It means, okay, you got inflation, and it may be coming down, but it has never kept up with wage gains. They say, well, wage, people are making more money. Well, not enough money to make up for the inflation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something right now. You can say at 5:47 on the 16th day of August, 2023, Brian Wilson said something, and it turned out to be true. You can hear me now, believe me later. Here it is. We're about to see inflation go back up. There's little doubt in my mind that what's going on with oil prices right now and gasoline prices is going to ripple through the economy in a way that it always does. Nothing can cause inflation, runaway inflation, faster than increased gasoline and oil prices. And what you need to understand is that the administration has no place to turn to solve that problem. They've cut off drilling. They're not doing anything to make sure that we are energy independent. But at the same time, when things got really, really critical during the midterm elections, what did they do? They started drawing oil out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And the idea was, well, we'll put more oil into there, and therefore the price of oil will come down, because when there's a lot of something, the price is low. When there's not much of something, the price is high. It's the law of supply and demand. It's just the way it works. And so we'll put some more oil into the system from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Well, they did. And now the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is lower than it's been at any time since the mid-'80s. We don't have much oil in the Strategic Oil Reserve. They just recently stopped taking oil out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in order to artificially keep the price of oil and gas low. But now, the price of oil, for a number of reasons, is going up. The price of gasoline will go up. They can't go back to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. There's nothing they can do. In fact, what they're supposed to be doing right now is refilling the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And if they do that, they'll be taking oil out of the market to fill it. And so they keep putting that off and putting that off. Bottom line is oil is going to cost more. Gasoline is going to cost more. That raises inflation. We're not done with inflation. And as long as we're not done with inflation, we're not done with interest rates going up and up and up and up. Bad news from Fed minutes today, certainly sounding as if they believe that there's going to have to be more increased rates, and that has a real impact on people. If you're having a hard time meeting ends and having things come together at the end of the month, covering your basic expenses, what do? You turn to your credit cards. And what happens with credit cards when interest rates are going up? They become incredibly expensive. They can put you deeper and deeper and deeper in the hole. I don't see the thing getting better. I see the economy getting worse. Why they're out there touting Bidenomics at a time when things are about to take a turn for the worse just baffles me. But, that's not the first time that's happened. 50 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. One of the hardest things that we see as we get older is that our parents and loved ones are getting older too. And they may start struggling with the day-to-day things that were once so easy. Reminds us that they're going to need more help as they get a little older. And this is where assisted family care can help. They can connect you with a responsible, compatible helper to assist you with your loved one's daily needs. And if your loved one is a veteran or a spouse or a widow of a veteran, they could very well qualify for a little-known benefit to cover these kinds of expenses. Assisted Family Care has years of experience in helping those in Middle Tennessee who qualify get access to this benefit. You see, many veterans are eligible for up to 20 hours of daily living assistance each week at no cost to them. Not everyone is eligible, but if you're a veteran with wartime service, you may well qualify for the benefit for yourself or for your spouse. But the application process, quite frankly, it's daunting. It can be confusing. But don't worry. Assisted Family Care in Nashville, they have years of experience in cutting through the red tape to help veterans receive the benefit if eligible. They will connect you with a responsible, compatible helper to assist with your daily needs. Assisted Family Care can help. Assisted Family Care is there for you. Visit assistedfamilycare.com or call this number, 615-833-9725.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
You hear me talk all the time about the folks over at Beacon Capital Management and how, sometimes what you need is a fresh set of eyes to look over your portfolio to make sure that you've got all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. Sometimes you need a little mid-course correction to make sure you're going to end up where you want to be. Well, I'm going to say that tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. at the Marriott in Cool Springs, they're having what they call a market halftime report, where they'll look at financial trends and opportunities and talk about the outlook as we go forward in the middle of the year. And listen, if it sounds like something that you'd be interested in, why don't you go to beaconcm.com. That's beaconcm.com. I think you can probably still get registered and be there. It starts at 10:30 tomorrow at the Marriott in Cool Springs. You'll hear from Pete Benson. You'll hear from John Maxon. You'll hear from other folks at the company, and then we'll give you their best advice. And boy, they got some smart people there. And I'll be there to sort of act as the MC and give you opening remarks. And it would be great to shake your hand and say hello if you get there a few minutes early. So that's again the market halftime report at the Marriott Cool Springs starts at 10:30 tomorrow. Hope to see you there.
.601, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 80 degrees, and it seems like it's going to be around this temperature with around these clear skies all week. No showers in the forecast. Latest traffic report along with that full forecast upcoming in 5 minutes. A 2-year-old child was shot this afternoon in Tennessee. Channel 4's Michael Warwick fills us in.
Crime scene detectives have been inside this home for the past hour trying to figure out how this 2-year-old was shot. Metro Police told me the little girl was home with her father around 2 o'clock when she was shot in the chest with a handgun. This is on Mayor Lane in Bordeaux. That child, we're told in just the last couple minutes by a commander out here at the scene, that child is now in surgery, and we are all hoping that she pulls through. Police tell me the father has been cooperative and no charges have been filed yet.
Officials say they have a chaplain at that hospital with the family currently. Then they have not determined if that gun was registered. Right now, over to Clarksville, a shootout that lasted hours left 2 suspects dead, 4 officers and a hostage injured. This happened yesterday. TBI still currently investigating. Officers had arrived at the Paddock Place apartments with warrants to arrest 31-year-old Brandon Green and 33-year-old brother Leonard Green. The 2 men barricaded themselves inside of that apartment with a hostage for nearly 12 hours. Then shots were finally exchanged once police entered that apartment. All of the officers' injuries are non-life-threatening, as is the hostages. And it's a big day on Maui because many of the roadblocks that were preventing residents on the western side of the island to go home have now come down. Here's Alex Stone.
Opening the roads here that lead to West Maui is a very big deal. That means that many island residents who don't live in the burn zone but have been unable to get home can now go home, and those who were trapped north of Lahaina can now get out. Lahaina itself in the burn zone remains closed, but drivers can use a bypass to go around the town and get somewhat of their normal lives back, but it's bumper-to-bumper traffic as people are returning.
And right now in Tennessee, a Sumner County man accused of killing 8 people in 2019, including members of his own family and a 12-year-old girl, will avoid the death penalty. The Tennessean says 30-year-old Michael Cummins pleaded guilty today in a deal with prosecutors, which puts him behind bars for the rest of his life, no chance of parole. The 2019 murders were so horrific, extra mental health support was provided to first responders who had to process those crime scenes. The victims were either chopped up or beaten to death. And now to some entertainment news. Barbie has broken a lot of records since its debut, but this one, pretty remarkable. Jason Nathanson.
Think of all the huge movies Warner Brothers has ever made. Batman, Superman, Justice League, Harry Potter, and now Barbie is the queen of them all.
Where are we going? Barbie Land!
It's now the highest grossing film in Warner Brothers history in North America, not adjusted for inflation. It stands at $537.4 million, edging out WB's previous highest earner, 2008's The Dark Knight, which peaked at $536 million. Worldwide, the final Harry Potter film is still WB's top earner, but Barbie is close, and it's possible the Boy Wizard's record will be broken.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is 8 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, and I am your friend and radio buddy. 16th day of August. We are just a little bit beyond halfway through the month, and we are in the middle of the week. So, yeah, we got some things to get done here. We got all kinds of stuff happening. Let me kick off this hour by talking again about these indictments that have been brought against Donald Trump. Now, before you run off, say, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear more about that. Listen, I think you're going to find this interesting. The Trump indictments really focus on a lot of things that Donald Trump said or tweeted or a phone call that he made or things that he said in public. And they're saying somehow this is a RICO case, which is insane. I don't understand. This seems like such overreach. But I saw this story in the Washington Times, and it resonated with me as being something that I agree with and something that I'm hearing from a lot of different people, that these charges that are coming out of the state of Georgia are not much when you really look at it all, because if it's all based on things that he said, then he may well be protected. Because he's using his words here. This is political speech. And it seems to me that, you cannot take a man and put him in jail for exercising his First Amendment rights. And one thing that I know from following the Supreme Court over many years is when it comes to communication issues and free speech issues, the High Court believes that political speech is among the most important kind of speech that must be protected at all costs. So if what he did was pick up the phone and call some people, ask some questions, prod, poke, try to get information, if he expressed what his desire was, it doesn't mean anything. He had heard that there were some reports of improprieties. If you're a candidate, it is certainly within your right, whether you're running for president or dog catcher, to pick up the phone and find out if you got some problem and you're hearing something about what's going on, to try to get information, to ask questions. If you're using your words, there shouldn't be any problem here. Let me read this story from the Washington Times. Georgia's sprawling criminal indictment of former President Donald Trump takes direct aim at his tweets and phone calls in his bid to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in the state. He lost by about 11,779 votes, and he says the election irregularities are responsible for Joe Biden's victory in the state. The former president made the case to Georgia officials on social media, and the claim could land him in prison for more than 2 decades, but not according to some folks. These indictments cross the Rubicon of American politics as we now indict the leading opponent of the administration and former president for acting on the oldest tradition in America, contesting elections, criminal defense lawyer Robert Barnes told the Washington Times. That's right. It's as old as America itself, raising questions about whether or not things were on the up and up. Now, let's just listen to this for a moment. If Trump has violated the law to the point where RICO statutes are now being imposed, then what about Stacey Abrams, who would tell anybody who would listen back in 2018 that she had been robbed of the governorship by, what she considered an illegal election, that the election was stolen from her. Here is Stacey Abrams.
I do have one very affirmative statement to make. We won, but I didn't lose. I got the votes, but we won't know exactly how many because of how they cheated. I did win my election. I just didn't get to have the job. We were robbed of an election.
Using the word rigged, using the word steal, do you think it's dangerous going into 2020?
I don't, because we can actually back it up. And so in response to what I believe was a stolen election. And I'm not saying they stole it from me. They stole it from the voters of Georgia. Back went outside asking if I'm ever going to concede. The answer is no. This is not a speech of concession. Because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. And I will not concede because the erosion of our democracy is not right. People will make you mad. They will invert your feelings. They're going to steal your election. It was not a free and fair election. I think the election was stolen from the people of Georgia. I believe it was stolen from the voters. Thousands of Georgians had their voices stolen because they were not able to cast ballots. And they cannot be guaranteed that their votes will be counted in 2020 if we don't do this right.
If what happens to you happens nationally, and we see whoever wins the Democratic nominee, if they say, actually, I can prove that there's a number of votes in every state and that the same thing that you just described happens in multiple states, should they concede?
I do not think we should concede an election until we know the results of an election. I still fundamentally believe.
Well, this just goes on and on and on and on. Now, if Donald Trump is being brought up on charges because he used his words and claimed that the election had been stolen from him, if he was following up on reports of impropriety, then how is it that Stacey Abrams has not been brought up on charges? No, I mean, how is it that Hillary Clinton has not been brought up on charges? She claimed, that she was beaten by Donald Trump improperly. She said that she was the legitimately elected candidate, and she never did honestly concede to Donald Trump. So, I don't understand how you can come after Trump for using his words and asking questions, using his his First Amendment free ability to use his words to ask questions. It's protected political speech. Again, this guy, Robert Barnes, is among those who say Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis' prosecution of Donald Trump attempts to criminalize free speech and the right to question and protest election results. There are others who take that charge as well. Here is Mr. Trump has not stopped saying that the Democrats rigged the Georgia election. He announced on social media he will hold a Monday press conference, by the way. Oh, that's right. I want to mention this. A large, complex, detailed, but irrefutable report. He's going to throw that out there. But if Mr. Trump's claims of election fraud are central to Ms. Willis' case, you have to ask questions about how it's legally possible to charge President Trump and his advisors for simply objecting to a presidential election. This, according to Mike Davis, a former counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee, president of the Article 3 Project, which advocates for constitutional judges and the rule of law. That is core political speech, either protected by immunity or in his official capacity, or the First Amendment in his personal capacity. Because he was president at the time, he has some protections. Because every individual has the protections of the First Amendment, he has those protections as well. It just doesn't seem like they've got the case built here. And what I think is going to happen is that I think once the Trump lawyers dig in and start filing pretrial motions, that a lot of this stuff that sounds so ominous, RICO statutes, 18 people, they just basically threw everything in the world they could throw against the wall and wondered if any of it would stick. But the prime thesis is that somehow he intimidated Georgia officials. One man's, I guess, intimidation is another man's just asking questions. I don't know. I think he had every right to ask the questions that he asked. Everything that I've seen means that, it seems to me that he's not going to actually be in any problem here. Trump's Georgia trial could be televised. Donald Trump and his 18 of his associates set to be arraigned next week after being indicted by a grand jury in Fulton with alleged attempts to overturn the results of the election. While Trump's prior 3 arraignments took place in New York, where cameras are prohibited, and Miami and Washington, D.C., where judges have the discretion to allow certain recording devices, his 4th is set to take place in a state where recording is indeed allowed. Under Georgia law, video cameras are permitted in the courtroom so long as they don't impact the proceedings. So it could be broadcast on national TV as we go forward. So there you have it. I mean, I don't know how you make it any clearer. You can ask all kinds of questions. You can make any kinds of allegation. Grand jury indictment is a one-sided affair. I think it was Matt Murphy who said it the other day, and I went, "Wow, that's incredibly a good point." Basically, when a district attorney goes before a grand jury, it's sort of like a focus group, but you're only hearing one side of the story. The president's attorneys are not allowed to go in there and make a counter argument. So an indictment doesn't mean that you're guilty. You're innocent until proven guilty. And I think that if so much of this is based on what he said, that by the time we get to trial, a lot of the stuff that is being alleged will be thinned out and thrown away and will not be a part of the prosecution against him. I really believe that will be the case. That's going to happen on just about every one of these things because none of this stuff really seems to be all of that substantial. But again, it matters, where the jury pool comes from, etc. In particular case in Fulton County jury, it'd be difficult to get an honest jury. It'll be an unbiased jury, and same thing in the District of Columbia. I mean, I think Joe Biden got 92% of the vote in the last election. That's the jury pool. So a lot of things have got to happen. And yeah, I tell you what, I think this ends up ultimately, a lot of these things will make their way to the highest court in the land. 20 minutes now, past the hour of 6 o'clock. Wellness Institute of Nashville, you've heard me talk about them. I am not only somebody who talks about them, I'm also a patient. Dr. Kevin Mitchell is my doctor. He can be your doctor as well. Non-surgical spinal decompression, that's the big thing that they got going. It's the thing that can help so many different kinds of problems. You got a problem with pain in your back or your neck or your arms or your legs, or maybe, a tingling in your extremities. All of these things are things that can potentially be made better by the application of this therapy we call non-surgical spinal decompression. And now Dr. Kevin Mitchell and Dr. Ashley Mitchell have the first of its kind KT machine. Now, it's like spinal decompression, but it's really designed to help your knee problems. And the idea here is to gently elongate the knee and joint, which allows the meniscus and the cartilage to receive the healing therapy without the need for surgery or painkillers. Take advantage of the 2023 special. If you are a new patient, $23, you get an exam, a consultation, x-rays if needed. Bring in an MRI and have the doctor go over it. If you've got one, he'll come up with a treatment plan, and you're off to the races. Again, that $23 is only for new patients. 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com. 25 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair while we're here till up until 7 o'clock. Then the great one, Mark Levin, will take over. I've listened to him a little bit last night. Boy, is he good. Alan Dershowitz is a guy who has been saying that the Hunter Biden special counsel appointment that came out the other day, Attorney General comes out and says the man who, wanted to cut this plea deal that had nothing to it, this sweetheart deal, is now going to be a special counsel. And he has the full authority to do anything that he wants to do. Usually what happens is that a special counsel comes from outside of government. In this particular case, that's not the case with Hunter Biden's, this David Weiss guy. He is still going to remain during all of this, even though he's been appointed special counsel on the Hunter Biden matter. He's still going to be the U.S. attorney for the state of Delaware. And there are those who say, you just can't do that. Daily Caller, when Attorney General Merrick Garland announced he was appointing David Weiss as special counsel, he failed to mention 600.3c of the Code of Federal Regulations entitled Qualifications of the Special Counsel. And these qualifications include the following. The special counsel shall be selected from outside the United States government. The requirement is the law. The regulations were authorized by Congress under 5 U.S.C. 301, 509, 510, 515 through 519. And you would think that the Attorney General, as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, certainly knows the law, or at least could get somebody to tell him what the law is. I mean, you would think the Justice Department just crawling with lawyers who could give him that. So there are those, including Alan Dershowitz, who says, I don't know how in the world you can do this. He's not alone. I mean, there have been other people who have said that it's a sham. You got, I'm trying to think of the guy's name, McCarthy, Andrew McCarthy. He's on record as saying that you just can't do this. So the way I read it, yeah, I see it too. People have been saying, Wilson, for days now, they've been saying, Wilson, you can't do it. The mysterious thing to me is, is anybody in official capacity making that case? I mean, where is Jim Jordan? Where is James Comer? The Speaker of the House has said we're not going to let this stop us from doing our investigation. But why is no one pointing out that the Attorney General of the United States, if this is true, the Attorney General of the United States has taken an action that is blatantly a violation of the laws and the statutes with regard to special counsels? So, what's going to happen there? Is there anybody going to raise it? So, one way or the other, I mean, look, I'm no lawyer, but I know this, that if it's that cut and dried, if it's that black and white, it won't be long before somebody steps up and says, this guy can't do that. So we'll continue to watch that and see what happens. So far, as I say, nobody in official authority seems to have raised any real questions. This could have something to do with the fact that Congress is on break and they're not due back until, after Labor Day. So we'll see. Special counsel has rejected Hunter Biden's misleading plea deal claims. He has apparently rejected claims by Hunter Biden defense team on Tuesday that part of a plea agreement between them had gone into effect, escalating a dispute in a case that could be headed for trial. Prosecutors working on behalf of Weiss wrote in a court motion that the federal government did not renege on the plea deal, as the defendant inaccurately asserted in a court filing. The deal between Weiss and Biden first began to unravel in a hearing in July when U.S. District Judge Mary Ellen Noreika raised concerns that it would preclude Biden from future charges, including Foreign Agent Registration Act violations. The deal involved Biden pleading guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges and entering into a pretrial diversion agreement to avoid a felony gun charge. Noreika had ordered both parties to revisit the agreement But late last week, prosecutors revealed in a motion to vacate the order that they were at an impasse with Biden's attorneys and not in agreement on either a plea agreement or a diversion agreement. What happens next? Again, something we'll need to watch very closely in the days ahead. 30 minutes now, past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. Let me tell you about the folks over at the Nashville Armory Ranges. You know, there are two locations for your convenience. The Nashville Armory is at 4290 Kenilworth Drive in Nashville, 15,000 square feet, which combines retail, classrooms, and, of course, pistol and rifle-rated ranges. So you can learn, you can become proficient, and you can stay that way. The second location, the Franklin Range at 390 South Winds Drive. There you'll find 10 state-of-the-art shooting ranges equipped with automated target control and a custom shooting stalls that provide a virtually private shooting experience. Now let's talk about the people who work there. They pride themselves on hiring folks who have the expertise to advise even the most experienced shooters. But they also have the patience to guide those who are new to the 2A world. You're not going to find any attitude. You're not going to find any pressure. Gunsmithing back at the Nashville range. If you're buying your next first gun or adding to the collection, you'll find a wide selection of new and pre-owned firearms, suppressors, optics, apparel, shooting accessories. It's a place to buy. It's a place to train. It's a place to become a really good shot. Learn more. Just go to armoryranges.com. And please let them know that your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson, sent you. I want some cake. I don't know. That song. It makes me, every time you play that song, I think of cake.
You know, I've got a couple of the bumpers that are cake.
Is that
besides
right?
This one, yeah.
And I'm not aware of it. This is the only cake song I really know.
They got some really good stuff.
Yeah. I still want some cake. Let's see. I got a lot of stuff. We'll call this cleanup aisle. We got about 22 minutes before we hand this over to Mark Levin, do the news, and then hand it over to Mark, and he can carry on for a while. But I've got a lot of things that I just sort of want to hit. They're not really one connected to the other. Some of them are, not all of them. I'm not going to squish them together, though.
No. All right. I was ready.
I mean, I know. It just destroys all the fun in it for you.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay, well, if you want to do it. I mean, what am I going to do? Stop you? I mean, I can't. We're 35 miles apart.
That's true.
I can't do anything to stop you if you really want to do it. Okay, thanks. Target came out with its sales results and its predictions for the rest of the year, and it's not good. Target reported Wednesday that it was lowering its sales and profit expectations for the rest of the year, with the company having faced conservative backlash earlier in the quarter over the release of LGBTQ products for kids, according to Target's second quarter earnings report. It lowered its sales and profit expectations for the rest of the year after its quarterly sales fell for the first time in 6 years, declining 5.4%. First time that's happened in 6 years. While it announced it expected the share price to clock in between 7 and 8, as opposed to the previously expected 7.75 to 8.75. The decrease in expectation follows backlash from conservatives after the company announced a Pride Month collection in May that included LGBTQ merchandise marketed for kids. I mean, again, Bud Light, Target, Disney. There is something going on there where conservatives are exerting their financial muscle to send a message. And it has not gone unnoticed. The folks at Target probably really do, and really, honestly, how did they not see that coming in the wake of Bud Light? How did they, this happened well after Bud Light. I don't know how in the world that they decided, that they were going to do this. But again, I stand astonished and amazed. After Bud Light, if you're a marketing or an important player in advertising for a particular product, you had to have a conversation after what happened to Bud Light. And what continues, by the way, to happen to Bud Light. I read today that somebody's like part of the Bush family, Anheuser-Busch family, wants to buy Bud Light back as a brand and try to rehabilitate it. And I think, honestly, that's the only way Bud Light can be rehabilitated, is if it is somehow bought out or perceived to be under new ownership. Sometimes, when you have a company or a restaurant and it's not going so well, you close the doors for a few days, you come back under new management. Well, it may be that you just hired somebody new at the front desk. I don't know, but they need that. That's the only thing that saves them. But Target really, continuing to reel from this LGBTQ kid merchandise that they were touting there for a while. In other economic news, U.S. mortgage. Did you want to squish? Did I stop you from squishing?
Sure.
Thank you. U.S. mortgage rate climbs to 7.16%, the highest since 2001. The 30-year mortgage rate rose to 7.16 last week, matching the highest since 2001, crimping both sales and refi activity. The contract rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage rose 7 basis points. According to Mortgage Bankers Association data out on Wednesday, that's today. The gauge of home purchase applications slipped for the 5th straight week to the lowest since 1995. Okay. I'm going to do like 20 seconds on this. Mortgage rates are probably going to continue to go up. And I wish that were not true, because what I really would love to see is for that part of the economy to be in control. But inflation is, I think, going to creep up. There's a lot of the Fed minutes came out today. The Fed minutes suggested that we're not done with interest rates hikes, so we could go something well above 7. But the economy still is sort of superheated, and the only way that you can make inflation go away is to continue to raise interest rates. We're a long way from being done with that, apparently, according to the Fed notes that came out today. U.S. homeless population has ballooned, and if you're blowing up a balloon, it might sound a little bit like this. No, probably not. U.S. home population balloons as Biden seeks millions to house illegal migrants. According to new data published by the Wall Street Journal, over 577,000 Americans are homeless today, representing an 11% increase over last year. The increase would represent by far the largest recorded increase since the government started tracking comparable data in 2007. The next highest increase was a 2.7% jump in 2019, excluding an artificially high increase last year caused by pandemic counting interruptions. Of the nearly 600,000 homeless Americans, 150,000 are considered chronically homeless because they have lived on the streets for over a year with many suffering from mental illness. Despite the homeless problem, Biden's asking Congress to approve hundreds of millions in American taxpayer dollars for a housing development project for illegal migrants. That's right. The Daily Fetch reported last week Biden is asking for more funds as part of a $40 billion emergency funding request to Congress. Why? Because New York Mayor Eric Adams, who is the mayor of a sanctuary city, is now whining that we can't bear the cost of all the migrants who have ended up in New York City. He said that the influx of migrants could cost his city $12 billion. You don't have to be a mathematician to understand what this is doing to our city. Then why? Words have consequences. When you say, as a community, we're a sanctuary city. Hey, listen, all you people who are coming across the border illegally, we don't care about the law. We want you to know that we'll welcome you with open arms. And when it comes time for them to welcome folks with open arms, they're shocked, stunned, and amazed that it's going to cost them $12 billion. There are 57,300 migrants in New York City, with an estimated 100,000 that will need services by June of 2025. So, again, not good for New York, and the homeless population continues to blow up, and a lot of it has to do with illegal migrants seeking a place to hang out. They have no place to be as they come across the border. Border policy, I'm telling you, it's going to be one of the things that drives this upcoming election cycle. Cabana wife loves, she loves her some Aldi, loves to go to Aldi for certain things. I don't know anything about Aldi because my job when we go to Aldi is to simply drive her to the door and wait. I don't go in. I wait. I drive around Cabana wife and I wait. But I know she loves it, and I know it's a thing. A lot of people love their Aldi. Well, Aldi has apparently got some money stuck back because they're buying Winn-Dixie and Harvey's Supermarket, adding 400 grocery stores across the Southeast. That's a big deal. Some will become Aldi's. Others will remain as Winn-Dixie's and will remain as Harvey's Supermarket. But they become a big player across the entire Southeast region by adding, in this purchase, 400 grocery stores. Wow. That's pretty cool.
By the way, it was pointed out to me earlier, we were talking about Aldi and how you have to put a quarter in to get a shopping cart. Yep. It was pointed out to me that the reason they do that is to encourage people to then return those carts to the front of the store to get your quarter back, so they're not just leaving them scattered about the parking lot. And that makes a lot of sense, I guess.
Oh, no, I mean, I figured that out.
Yeah, I thought it was to keep people from just, stealing them and running around with them and pushing them out wherever, but it's more for the people that are shopping there to encourage them to return them to the front instead of leaving them out in the parking lot.
I mean, I always go out of my way to make sure that I take my cart back to the little rack.
Yeah, same.
So many people just, they get done loading their car and they just leave it there.
Yep.
That's just poor. That's poor parking lot procedure.
That's just lazy.
It is. It's just lazy. It tells you a lot about an individual.
It's
if
true.
You take the time to go put the shopping cart back up, little things like that. If you haven't got time to do that, then you need to rethink about your priorities. You need to get your act together. Come on, take the dadgum basket back to the rack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a quarter's not going to make a difference to me. I mean, I'm going to do it anyway. All right, let's see what else we got. I'm going to move into some local stories very quickly. I've got time for about one more, right? Metro Council greenlights the license plate readers. They're going to have license plate readers. They're going to have some more conversation about where they're placed, but it got approved. The final vote was 24-14. 24-14 with one abstention. Not only that, Metro Council passed a noise ordinance for Broadway. The speakers have to be focused inward, not outward. And there's a bill now limiting vehicles in downtown Nashville, the party buses, the party vehicles. And there's some question about how many they may be allowing, but now there's going to be a greater limit placed on those. And some people who have permits under this new process may no longer have permits. They may decide there's only so many, and we're not taking any more.
We're all full.
We're all full. Not sure that's a bad thing. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You've heard me talk about DT McCall's and all the things that they can do for your home. And, you know, it's true. If you need appliances, furniture, mowers, whatever, honestly, this is just cut to the chase. If you needed something for your house, there's a pretty good chance that DT McCall's has got it. I talk about the appliances. I talk about the furniture. One thing I love when you go to one of their stores, and Cabana Wife and I did this, we went to the store because we wanted to look around and just see what was out there. I had one idea about what kind of couch I wanted for the living room. She had a very different idea, but because there was so much selection to choose from, man, in about 2 minutes, we came to a conclusion about what we liked and what we were going to put in our house, and people rave about it. It's all because they have so much to choose from. And I've gone through the whole thing about appliances and how sometimes if you're working with a big box store, they'll jack up the price and they don't give you an honest price. Well, DT McCall will always give you an honest price. That includes the cost of delivery, setup, and haul away. It's an honest price. Been around 100 years. You don't make it that long without having a reputation for treating people right. And whenever possible, DT McCall sells products made and manufactured in Tennessee to keep those dollars local. Find about all the things they can do for your home by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615 851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Did you know that most alarm systems are capable of being converted over to NCA alarms, so you may be monitored at a much lower monthly rate? My name is Shooter Stein, president of NCA.